mean, a big part of that was my relationship with God prior, and what we had built as the foundation of our beliefs was truly tested, but I was able to pull from that foundation. I wasn't starting from scratch because my own exhaustion, my own needs, my own selfish wants were not going to get me through that period of time, because I literally could not do anything for myself. At night, he had these casts on his arms so he wouldn't lose the progress he made, and he would have an itch on his nose, and he would wake up in a panic attack, and I had to find the spot to scratch his nose in the middle of the night over and over. I had to make sure that everything was just right so he wouldn't get infection. Like, the amount of detail, and then talking to insurance companies when he was napping, and then, trying to make sure we had all the supplies we need. Like, there was not a second where I was able to be comfortable or well fed or well rested or anything. And on top of that, my doctor's saying, hey, you're pregnant, you have to focus on this baby. You don't get the luxury of being this wife that you want to be. So, like, just the amount of exhaustion and pressure and things that I was feeling, my own selfish needs would not have been able to survive that without the foundation I had built on choosing God, knowing that he knows what's best for me in the end, and everything he says is good for me. So if he says to die to self, if he says to love your neighbor as yourself, if he says all these things, he's not saying it because it's like this fun game that he's created. He loves me to every tiny part of me and wants the best for me. So it's like, why would I think that he's just making these things up? If you do it, there will be fruits of the Spirit in your life that will help you to be able to keep going in the areas that you know to be true. And so for me, there was one verse that really offended me at the time, but then hit hard, where it's 2 Corinthians 4:17. It says, for our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all. And that kind of gave me this mindset, like, okay, if I believe that this life we have here is not all I get, like, that gives me the hope to be able to look to this eternal life that I'm going to have, that I'm not even going to remember the terrible, awful feeling I have right now when I'm in an eternal glory with him. And so it's like the ability to kind of pull yourself up and out of this awful, heavy circumstance I'm in right now, to be able to say, okay, this is not all I have. And I have somebody who has prepared this beautiful place for me to go. And if he's saying these are the things to do while you're here, and they're not going to be easy, but I'm going to be with you, it's almost like I was able to pull away from it and get out of it to say, okay, this is not all that we have. There's bigger, there's better. And you just have to keep doing what you know to be right. Or if you don't know what it is that you need to be doing that's right, to be able to have godly counsel around you to kind of point you in the right direction. And so that there was a little tagline that I ended up having where it was like, even if God is still God, like, even if this is not the day where I want to be the caretaker and the worker and the this and that, God is still God. Like, the kingdom that I'm working towards is not shaken by what we had going on. And I know it's kind of difficult because what happened to Matt was not him doing something to me. And so it is difficult in marriages when things are done almost to you could feel, because ours was an outside circumstance that happened. But I think the same thing applies, that God is a good God that loves you. And so if he's calling you to still continue to serve your spouse in ways of love and forgiveness and the things that are very difficult for us to do when we feel attacked by an action, it still applies in the same way, because God knows that when you walk through those hard things that are not our natural knee-jerk reactions, there's good on the other side. There's fruits of the Spirit on the other side. And that's the only way we can get through any of it. Because if we feel attacked, if we feel hurt past this point, you can only go off of your own grit for so long, and then you're going to implode. It just doesn't work. And I see that there are people who kind of say, yeah, but Matt was still nice to you, even though he was burned, and he didn't cheat on you. He didn't lie to you. He didn't do these things that are like to me. But I do think that all the things that we lived through, the same things apply